From an Islamic point of view, we worship the one God called Allah. We read the Quran, which is the holy book. What I found interesting about today was I was able to see the different ways people think about religion and science. Although the Quran contains a lot of scientific theories and facts, our dominant way of thinking about worship, the world, is a religious way.
Today has been incredibly inspiring and has left me questioning whether there is an objective truth, in which field, religion or science, it will be discovered, if both or any.
It was a very thought-provoking experience where we could see other people that believed that religion and theology could coexist with science and relativity. So it was very interesting to actually see different people's points of views and very prestigious people as well.
On behalf of St Xavier's, thank you.
Well, my name is Michael Rice, and I work both as an academic in the University of London in the Institute of Education in Science Education, so I try and work to improve the way that science is taught in schools, but I'm also an ordained minister in the Church of England, so I help look after small parishes near Cambridge, where I live. And one of the things I really enjoyed about today is that quite often the science and religion debate is pretty repetitive. It's always about science on the one hand, religion on the other, and then somebody makes a radical suggestion that actually there isn't a conflict. And today, of course, just rather took for granted that there doesn't have to be a conflict between religious ways of knowing and scientific ways of knowing, and was much more interested in the diversity of relationships between the subjects of religion and science. And putting my educator hat on, for me, that's really important, because one of the things I want young people in school to do is to be taught by teachers who have a great belief in their subject, but also introduced to the fact, in my view, that there's a tremendous diversity of ways of understanding. We live in an incredibly complex and rich world. For some people, a religious framework will never make sense for them, and for others it does. And I like the idea that one of the functions of schooling is to enable us to end up, hopefully, living in communities where we will respect one another, even if we have very different takes on the fundamental issues in life, such as, is there a God? And the whole atmosphere this morning, which was in the best sense non-confrontational, of course people disagreed with each other, but not as it were with deep enmity, but also exploring a lot of tentativeness, even from major figures, was extremely helpful.
I'm Madeline Bunting, I'm the Associate Editor on The Guardian, and I've been attending the session here on science and religion. I think that there were two questions, and they're really sort of simple ones that really helped clarify what we were trying to do. One is, what's the fuss all about? And I think there what we were exploring is how science and religion have been placed in conflict, that a lot of the public debate sees them as completely opposed to each other, that science is winning out against religion, and that religion has nothing more really to offer, it's a failed competitor. Now, I think the Archbishop of Canterbury helped reframe that right at the beginning by saying, another way of looking at this is that there are two different ways of knowing. That here we have two, disciplines of understanding the world, science and religion. And that just as, you have history and geography, and they all have their own disciplines, their own skills needed for those ways of questioning and understanding the world, similarly with science and religion. So I found that a very helpful way of thinking about this question. The next one was, well, what's next? If we have this very conflictual debate going on about science and religion, what comes next? And there were some very, very interesting comments on that. For example, Simon Conway Morris suggested that perhaps science was getting to a limit of its own competence and would need religion, or those other aspects of the humanities, or I don't want to paraphrase him crudely here, that would help explain something like consciousness, that mind, what is mind, maybe something that science itself can't answer alone. And this idea that maybe we've come to a point where science can't answer every question seemed to me to be another intriguing possibility when John Horton, the climate scientist, talked about this great environmental challenge we all face, the crisis we face, that science has revealed this crisis to us. So science is an enormously important, helpful discipline in understanding the world. But can science help us get out of this, help us deal with this challenge, get out of the mess we've created. And there we went into another very interesting question about relationality, that ultimately religion deals with relationality all the time. It's about how individuals relate to each other, to the universe, how they collaborate and cooperate. And it seemed to me that what Horton was suggesting was that the way in which science has exposed this crisis of interconnectivity, the global crisis whereby environmental catastrophe faces us in so many different directions, we are all so interconnected that at this point we again will need religion, ethical systems, many other forms of other disciplines of understanding if we are to meet the challenge of the environment. So I found those just some of the really interesting aspects of the morning that have really stayed with me, and I think I will want to think about much further.
I'm Mary Ridgely. I'm the kind of philosopher who likes not just talking to other philosophers, but dealing with all sorts of large and horrifying problems. And I was impressed indeed by this morning's cast of very large problems, and I think he did a rather good job in bringing a lot of them together. This is a very confusing state of affairs in that the way in which people think about science and religion at present is an absurdly simple one, that these are kind of competing for the same place, and I thought all the speakers made a good job of showing how that's not so. I particularly liked something that Rowan Williams said about the imagery and the importance of the imagery that we use on these things, how opinions get classed as being hard or soft, and this is taken as meaning that they are effectively manly or rather contemptible, and people can't get away from that. But the other thing which interests me particularly, and I was trying to talk about it myself as well, what Conor Kynan said about the way in which the supposedly scientific view of people has got to the point where it more or less can't see that they're there at all, because consciousness isn't something that you can put under the microscope, it isn't visible, and perception isn't similarly physical. The person who is supposed to be what is left when you've reductively removed all the superstitious things that go on with religion, that person has begun to vanish. And I think this is indeed perfectly true, as a whole series of moves which have been made to get rid of things which are thought to be superstitious, such as religion and the notion of the soul, which have ended up by leaving us with nothing, and therefore not much of a position from which we can say that everything else doesn't work. I think this is all quite sensible, and I was glad to hear it.